tribal people are looking for the one person within the tribe that has the greatest number of skills to be able to do a multitude of tasks that are very important to the success and the continuation of the tribe.
Hamilton is a ayahuasca shaman.
I came to Peru in my early 20s looking for the truth behind mysticism and shamanism, and if there was really anything there that was of real merit to find. And well, yeah, I found something, kind of unbelievable, really. And that kicked off a life path inside first getting involved in indigenous cultures and learning how to live with them, and then ultimately getting accepted into traditional apprenticeship, which is a very difficult thing to do, to gain the confidence of the locals to the point that you can be accepted.
Yeah.
And then all the way through training, which was life and death most of the time. And then ultimately the creation of Blue Morpho, which turned into something much more important than I ultimately thought it was going to be. We ended up reaching people from, over 100 countries and thousands of people from all over the world that ultimately came down. And it's been really an incredible journey. It's, I guess that's what shamanism really is a kind of journey in the ordinary states of consciousness and expanded or non-ordinary states of consciousness. But it's been a really wild ride, one I'm really grateful for.
I don't know if people really understand what you say when you say, like, learning shamanism was life and death, like most of the time. So maybe you could expand on that, and then we'll jump into it.
Sure. The life and death part was a kind of continuous series of tests, either rites of passage or tests of virtue, however you want to describe it. It's a test. And the goal in indigenous shamanism is not to make everybody a shaman, but literally carve away everybody else till the last man standing. It's the exact opposite idea of an inclusive, graduation. The tribal people are looking for the one person within the tribe that has the greatest number of skills to be able to do a multitude of tasks that are very important to the success and the continuation of the tribe. And so part of that is carrying on the oral traditions and history, the knowledge and the medicine that they have as a way of healing and treating all the different kinds of illnesses, which are very much the same as you would find in Western society. And, then it's also the means of sort of counseling and judgment for the tribe itself on how to maintain their rites and rituals and taboos, which kind of, keep the tribe cohesive. And all of those boil down to the role of the shaman within the tribe. And so the shaman has this very vast role and has to go through an incredible amount of training to ultimately be singled out as the person who's going to continue on the lineage, which gets passed down generation after generation after generation after generation. And I think people, just because they haven't had the exposure to it, are not familiar with really how long this has been going on. And in the Amazon, it's been going on for at least 10,000, if not longer, years of continuous passing on of these kinds of traditions and cultures, from one person to another throughout the tribal existence. And the tribes often are at war with each other or fighting over a whole different multitude of reasons, just like Western societies. And with that comes this, idea of treachery and potential extreme danger. And so knowing that you're going to kind of face all of that, the apprenticeship in a traditional form has these continuous series of rites of passage, which ultimately test your life. And that test comes down in the form of the different kinds of plants that you end up working with and ingesting, many of which are poisonous. So you have to survive basically being poisoned. And you also have extended periods of time where you're in wilderness, where the idea that human has controlled the idea of predator and prey has not been fully transcended. So you are prey at any given moment, from things like stingrays, electric eels, piranha, giant anaconda, jaguars, etc. There are many different kinds of animals that could ultimately lead to your demise, as well as a multitude of different kinds of plants that are extremely poisonous that you can run into, that you have to learn about. And then in consciousness itself, and in these visionary ceremonies that the shamans practice their medicine in, there's also a tremendous battle that goes on between both the idea of good and evil and the idea of who is strongest or who is the most powerful of the shamans. So there's sort of both this idea of one tribe besting another tribe, and then there's also this idea just fundamentally of, sort of following the taboos and staying away from them, or crossing that line and going into that place that Westerners call darkness, or they call evil. And I think for people who've participated in traditional plant ceremonies, it's clear that in the visions, our mythology of good and evil comes up a lot. So there's a lot of people who see very beautiful things, but there's also a lot of people who see a lot of really dark and horrific and gory and, stuff that you would think like out of a horror movie or demonography, et cetera. And so ultimately that comes to a head in this great supernatural battle of consciousness that most people are not familiar with. And it really plays itself out. The closest Western example is like a, multi-million massive online player game where there's all these different worlds and realms and creatures and beings, and they're kind of working for you or against you. And in that space, there's these tremendous forces that in your consciousness you are up against. And that could either be in nature of a direct attack upon your person, for, literally for personal reasons. Like in my case, they didn't want a foreigner learning. It was taboo to teach a foreigner. So there was a racist quality or a racism aspect of it. Or it could also be that someone's being paid to do these kinds of extortionary or really negative, hurtful things to another person for a variety of reasons. And they're kind of like hitmen. So they're, like if you thought of Star Wars, they're the bad guys, and they're willing to be paid to do these supernatural feats of darkness or negativity. And then there's a whole other group of shamans who have taken the counter argument to that and ultimately act as the defenders of people against that. And then that boils up down into these, massive battles that ultimately take place that can last for actually generations. It's really quite a wild kind of chess match that can get set up and can last for a really long time.
Okay, so it's not all love and light, right? Like I think people that's foundation number one. This isn't all love and light. Like you don't go to just any shaman and then he gives you the stuff and then it just like heals all of your shit that needs to be healed.
No,
and you're just feeling safe and awesome all of a sudden.
No, absolutely not. It's definitely not all love and light. If you go into the anthropology or an anthropological outlook on the tribal societies, most of the tribal societies up until the last 50 years did not believe in pathogenic illness. They literally only believed in witchcraft or sorcery-oriented illnesses. So they lived in a biosphere that is like the most rich and most biodiverse petri dish in the world. It's filled with the most number of different kinds of plants and animals that you can see, and then all of this life that you can't see that's a cause of a tremendous amount of illness. And the tribal people fundamentally had a spiritual mythology that said that all bacteria, all virus, all invisible sources of harm, disease, pestilence, illness, et cetera, was caused by rival tribes or rival consciousness that was trying to do you harm. And so fundamentally in the mythology itself, it is not this idea of all love and light in the sense of being happy and helpful and healing and curative and, that kind of new age version of light. I mean, I do still hold the idea that it is all based in light, but light taking the shape of unbelievably crazy and difficult forms of life for us to conjure and deal with, very much like COVID. COVID, you could say, is made of light, but it's a virus that seems to be wreaking havoc on all different parts of the planet at this time, as have many other kinds of viruses and disease over the years. So,
yeah. And
this idea of love and light, no.